Hey there, it's Juju and it's day 67. And today I'd like to talk about the Venezuelans, migrants that were deported to a high security prison in El Salvador, not their country of origin. And this was done by our current administration without due process, without proof, actually, that these men are in a violent criminal gang. So when you hear the news, if the headline that you're reading is violent criminal gangs from this horrible gang were deported and they are getting their just desserts because, we're locking them straight up in this high security prison. I could see that you're thinking, okay, that's a good thing. This is what they said that they were going to do. They're going to get rid of these violent criminals that are causing us harm and shouldn't be in our country. But the problem is that there was no due process. Now both Venezuela is saying that they want to have these men, not that, Venezuela has its own problems, but that these are not necessarily gang members, and that they were sent to a prison we are sending people to prison with, a maximum security with serious human rights abuse. Now, our prison system here in the United States has its problems. I spend a lot of time volunteering in the prisons. But this news, it's kind of interesting how when it first hits you, that yes, okay, because I don't believe in these mass deportations. Now, if people are actually violent criminals, I think that they can be, I have no problem with them after due process. And it has been proven that they are, have created serious harm here. They should be returned to the country of their origin. But the problem with this is it was a sweep. It was just to prove that they're tough on crime and they're doing what they said that they were going to do. But to return them to a country that's not even their country with no process at this point to get out. Now, some of these men, since then, I've seen the photos of their family. They were working as barbers. They weren't in criminal gangs. The whole basis of, determining that is tattoos. Now, I spent a lot of time in prison. I've sat with gang members. I've sat with people who have committed murder. And there's a lot of tattoos in prison. But you know what? There's a lot of tattoos outside of prison. When I go into the prisons and there's prison tattoos, and even if you have a prison tattoo, does that mean that you're currently an active gang member? We don't know that. When I go into prison, the guards have a lot of tattoos too. Out on the street, people have a lot of tattoos. So to have a tattoo be the evidence that you need that you're going to round someone up, fly them to a different country, have them mistreated, dragged, having their head shaved, and then we have our officials standing proudly in front of the cage full of men in horrific conditions, and this is supposed to make us feel good and safe. And I think if you see that picture and it does make you feel safe, then I would question your humanity. All of us, question your humanity every day, because so often we are sold on fear. Because being tough on crime, we're all worried. And so often when the most tough on crime rhetoric happens is when crime is actually on the decrease. So it's not about crime. It's about fear and manipulating people with fear. And the more time I spend in prison, and I'm working with men who are working towards rehabilitation, and I have a lot to say about prison. There's a lot of things I haven't seen in prison. I know that our prison system parts of it are being reformed here in California, and focusing on rehabilitation and bringing people back as citizens, as productive citizens. That should be our goal, not punishment. But we have such a puritanical, you need to be punished and suffer. And I used to have that view. I mean, it's in our movies. It's taught to us as Americans. But right now, America used to stand, in my mind, for the American dream was if you came here and you worked hard and you stood up for what was right, but you also took care of people. Now, if you examine our history, that isn't always the case, but it's at least an ideal that I was raised with. I was raised with the ideal of compassion and taking care of people. And the older I've gotten, the more that I'm focusing even probably than what I was raised with. So I just question the story behind the headline and do a little research, and then think about how would you feel if it was your family member that was swept up, sent to El Salvador, and El Salvador has a big history with this country in terms of human rights abuse, and head shaved and no way that you could get in touch with them. So that's just, my perspective. And, I do volunteer with Empathy in Action, which is a restorative justice group. I'll be going back into Soledad prison here in California. But think about this idea of punishment and how much that is bred into us. And think about how different it would be if we tried to identify the harm, who was harmed, how can we repair the harm, what does the victim want? Not that that should be the total, driving all of it, but our system is so predicated on punishment rather than actually repairing the harm. So that's my opinion. This is Juju, unfiltered, unedited, unscripted, just sharing some thoughts about where we are as a country. And I personally think that we can do a lot better. So lead with love, do something kind today.